Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 1st February 2021. Let us get into the first article. Center likely to postpone census to 2021. So the census was supposed to happen in the year 2020. Due to coronavirus pandemic, it was pushed back to 2021 with the hope that by the end of or the beginning of the year 2021, we would have tackled the coronavirus pandemic or it would have subsided naturally. But looking at the things, we are still very much in the coronavirus pandemic and experiencing aftershocks of coronavirus pandemic. The initial decision to postpone from 2020 was coronavirus pandemic. Again, the central government seems to push it back to year 2022 for the same reason that of coronavirus, as the government feels that it cannot divert resources from vaccination process. So in the first year, that is when the census was supposed to happen in the year 2020, the government felt that it has to control the pandemic or flatten the curve, and it cannot again divert resources from handling the coronavirus pandemic. So we have already handled the coronavirus pandemic in the year 2020. In this year 2021, the primary focus of the entire government infrastructure and structure seems to be vaccination drive, inoculation of population. So this year also the government doesn't want to divert its resources from the vaccination program. Hence it said that we'll postpone the censuses to 2022. See, the census exercise was to be conducted in two phases. That is, in the first phase, house listing and housing census was to be conducted. The second phase was people enumeration. So the first phase of the census system is to updating of the national population register. So that was the main goal of the first phase. House listing and housing census was the primary goal, was to give data or feed data to the national population register. If you remember correctly, or if you know the entire structure arguments or the entire development approach towards the CAA and NRC, National Population Register is at the core of the CAA and NRC registers. You need this to implement both CAA and NRC. So the government is concentrating on National Population Register through house listing and housing census along with population enumeration. So that is the first article. The second article, a bullet through an island's heart. See, yesterday Niti Aayog came out with a proposal or a document or a vision document pertaining to a particular island called Little Andaman Island in Andaman Nicobar grouping of islands. The document was named Sustainable Development of Little Andaman Island Vision Document. So the Niti Aayog's proposal is to leverage the strategic location and natural features of this island. So the vision document pertaining to Little Andaman Island specifically say that or envisions that building a new greenfield coastal city along with developing a free trade zone competing with the likes of Singapore and Hong Kong. See the interesting facts or similarities between Singapore, comparing Little Andaman Island, envisioning it as to be developed in the lines of Singapore is interesting. See, the proposal is pivoted along three development anchors and zones. The document talks about developing the Little Andaman Islands into three zones. So the zone 1, which would be spread over 1 or 2 square kilometers along the east coast of the island, will be the financial district and medical district, and will also include an aero city that is specifically centered on tourism and hospital. So the zone 1, which is spread over 1 or 2 kilometers, will have three main components to it. One is financial district, second is medical city, third is aero city. So this will in turn, or they hope that it will in turn development tourism and hospitality. Hospital districts both will be centered around these three districts. So the zone 2 would be a leisure zone. It will have a film city, a residential district, and a tourism special economic zone SEZ. And it would be of 85 kilometers. The zone 1 is 1 or 2 square kilometers. Zone 2 is 85 square kilometers of pristine forest. Remember, Little Andaman Island is an ecologically fragile, important reserve forest. It is critically endangered in a way due to global warming and adverse weather events. So this is interesting that the government or the policy document specifically talks about converting the very thick reserve forest in this Andaman Island, Little Andaman Island, into a development or a city or a economic city. Coming back to it, zone 3, which is 52 square kilometers again of pristine forest, which is ecologically rich, will be a nature zone, further categorizing into 3 districts: an exclusive forest resort, a nature healing district, and a nature retreat, all on the western coast. So if you see all the 3 zones, they are primarily on the coasts of the island, east coast, west coast, like that. So the plan has, as of now, the document does not talk about the financial details, nor the budgeting, nor the inventorization of forests and ecological wealth, and no details of any impact assessment. See, since 2014, whatever the project the central government has taken up in the name of development, one of the sharpest criticisms that it has faced was in the form of non-compliancy of performing impact assessment. If you remember the case of the Central Vista project also, the first critical argument made by the opposition or the parties that want to protect or conserve ecology or environment or trees surrounding the capital region, or specifically the Central Vista project building, they said that whatever the impact assessment or ecological impact or environmental impact assessment done by the central government doesn't hold up to the water. So again, the criticism seems to be that they see this is only a vision document, but they seem to be very serious about implementing this or developing this island into a financial city or financial destination. So as I said, it has no financial details, it has no budgeting, it doesn't talk about how they are going to tackle the forest because it is very thick reserve forest, which is very wild active wildlife, and also home to tribes. So no details of any of how they are going to address these situations. Since the plan, the document came out, only one person or one office seems to be expressing dissent, that is the Divisional Forest Officer of Little Andaman Island raised serious concerns about this vision on grounds of ecological fragility, indigenous rights, and vulnerability to earthquakes and tsunamis. So little bit about the Andaman Island, Little Andaman Island. 90% of the island is covered in forest. A large part of it is pristine green and evergreen type. Some 640 square kilometers of island is actually declared as reserve forest under Indian Forest Act, and nearly 450 square kilometers is protected as the Omji Tribal Reserve, creating a unique and rare socio-ecological historical complex of high importance. And if you remember the 3 zones, one is 102 square kilometers, the second is 85 square kilometers, the third is 52 square kilometers. These zones need connectivity, these zones need construction, large scale construction. So whenever you are talking about this, the impact that this large scale construction is not only going to be within these limits, it is going to go beyond the decided limits of zones. So if they say they are going to construct in a area of 52 square kilometers, the damage that is going to have is to be around, let us say, 100 square kilometers, because once the construction and the development starts, there is no stopping or saying that we have reached the 52 kilometers limit and we are going to stop construction here. Once development starts in anywhere, it is always going to grow outwards, not inwards. So this will have long lasting impact on the ecological fragility of the specific island, and also we have to remember the tribal reserve there. Coming to the next article, Economic Survey of 2020 and 21, Growth with Inequality. Reviewing the developments in the Indian economy during the current financial year, and providing an outlook for its near-term prospects is the goal of an economic survey. The document published one day before the budget is announced in the parliament. This document envisages what the financial is going to look about, how we are going to manage our fiscal responsibilities, or how we are going to see the market growth as a whole, is what is inscribed in this economic survey. So this year the survey opts for a self-congratulatory tone. The most unfathomable see this economic survey, most of your economic questions or questions regarding economy might be presented from the economic survey report. So the economic survey classifies or identifies the coronavirus pandemic as the most unfathomable global health emergency experienced in modern history. That is how they chose to define the coronavirus pandemic. They also go that there is no denying that the country appears to not only have flattened the curve, also crucially so far avoided a bruising second wave of infection seen in much of Europe and US. One of the most devastating effects that Europe and US faced was the second wave, where they have seen increase in the caseload despite experiencing a flattened curve of coronavirus cases. So far, India seems to be spared from the second wave brunt for myriad of reasons, including some government measures, herd immunity, and much more complicated reasons. So we are not experiencing the second wave as much as the countries of Europe and US has experienced. So while it may be debatable as to how of the turn in the pandemic's progress could be attributed wholly to proactive policy measures. See, whatever that we are seeing here, there is the non-repetance of coronavirus cases in the second phase, or second. While it may be debatable as to how much of the turn in pandemic's progress could be attributed to wholly proactive policy measures. See, we cannot say that the second wave is not being seen because of only government actions. We have to consider, as I said earlier, multiple other reasons have helped in reducing the impact of second wave on India and its population. So the survey goes on to forecast that the economy is currently experiencing a V-shaped recovery that would enable GDP to expand even by a conservative estimate by 11% in real terms in 2021 to 22 fiscal year. So the economic survey is optimistic by saying that we are going to experience, or we are going to see, a conservative estimate, meaning at least by 11% in terms of GDP growth. Survey has projected a nominal growth at 15.4%. Again, this is also a conservative and an optimistic outlook, but in reality it cannot be said that we are going to see 15.4% growth because of how things are playing out in the economic sector, especially in medium and micro industry sector, MSME sector specifically, because we are not seeing as much as the resurgence or investments into that two growth sectors. So the 15.4 number is little bit magical, as to be, or can be attributed as magical. Document fails to provide an honest assessment on ground economic situation by overlooking key aspects, including the extent of unemployment, even as it hints at the high level of rural job loss, which followed the return of millions of urban casual workers in the wake of last year's hastily implemented lockdown. It is no doubt that lockdown imposed by the central government was hasty in nature. As a result of it, we have seen the mass exodus of migrant labor to their respective villages, which was a challenge in itself, was also a very show in the face of failure of central government or state administrations or an administration as a whole, because they couldn't imagine or anticipate the reversal of migration happening from urban areas to rural areas, contending that the growth should be prioritized over inequality in tackling poverty. So the entire economic survey, if you go through it, you get the feeling that they are going to prioritize, or they are going to prioritize kind of creation of wealth over anything else. So the document talks about the economic survey report talks about doubling farmers' income, doubling income, or ensuring that the people increase their wealth or increase their income in general sense or in economical terms. But it doesn't talk about the inequalities that exist in the society. If you remember the corona, if you go back to few months, you could read reports stating that the richest people in the world grew their wealth by over 15 to 30% in certain countries during coronavirus pandemic, all while more than 60% of the population who are below 10% or 1% of their earning capabilities went below the poverty line. So there was a reverse of effect where people who were already rich increased their wealth. People who were struggling, instead of at least getting a chance of at survival, they lost what they had and moved into the bracket of poverty. When the pandemic has exacerbated the gap between the rich and the poor, the finance ministry is set to present her budget today. She is going to present her budget from 11 a.m. in the morning. The survey seems to privilege wealth creation over anything else. The entire document doesn't talk about how the government is going to address the income inequality that exists in Indian society. It talks about only wealth creation in general. We have to wait and see how the budget is going to play out and how reformist in nature it would be. Coming to the next article, in his first Man Ki Baat, Mr. Modi said his government was committed to modernizing agriculture and the efforts of government will continue in direction in future as well. This is him reaffirming the government stand that they are not going to repeal the farm laws by saying that we are committed to modernizing the agriculture and we will do so in the future as well. This is particularly important because this is his first Man Ki Baat for the year of 2021. So in this we have few special mentions that we have to know on general basis. So he came out and said that addressing the Republic Day Red Fort incident where vandalism took place and a little bit of violence was happening in Delhi and areas surrounding Delhi, with the clash between protesters hurting more than 300 or 400 Delhi police personnel. So there were a lot of confusion happening here. He said that the country was saddened to see the national flag being insulted, and he also came out with few positive notes that India has experienced so far during these challenging times, and he looking forward to some more good news from the pharmaceutical industry. Particularly, Made in India vaccine has not only made the country self-reliant Atmanirbhar, but had also become a movement of self-pride, Atma Gaurav. So here he is talking about the Covaxin from Bharat Biotech specifically because he is trying to reassure the public that whatever the vaccine that has been developed in-house by Indian scientists is as good as the one being developed by foreign countries or foreign institutions, which is a good thing that he is trying to address this. So the Prime Minister mentioned the Tarapur Martyrs Day, when the British had mercilessly killed several of a group of brave young patriots on 15th February 1932. I suggest you get into this Tarapur Martyrs Day and do a little bit of reading because it is of a very significant but not much talked about massacre done by the British. One special or one important aspect during his mention during his Man Ki Baat was a vegetable market at Boinpalli in Hyderabad, which was generating electricity from vegetable waste. This goes again in his stride of ensuring that nothing goes to waste or tackling new challenges in moving to a net neutral or net zero economy environment development. So it is a biomethanation unit which produces 500 units a day and 30 kilos of green manure at the waste management plant using 10 tons of waste produced at any yard or market. So the particular machine that we are talking about here is developed by the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, CISR. It was designed and patented by them. This is a high rate biomethanation technology based on anaerobic gas lift reactor. So it is an Indian technology. It is a patented technology from CSIR, specifically the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. This goes, as I said earlier, again, this particular biomethanation unit kills two birds with one stone. That is addressing the waste that is being generated at market yards and developing indigenous technologies or local specific technologies to address local issues or local needs. Atmanirbhar. Again, a special mention for a Gram Panchayat in Panchkula in Haryana, where wastewater was being used for irrigation. And again, in the respect of northeast region, people of Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh making a paper of eco-friendly nature. Monshugu. Again, a congratulatory note for all women crew of Air India commanding the longest flight from San Francisco to Bangalore. So this was a flight from San Francisco to Bangalore, passing over through the Arctic region, where it was entirely staffed and piloted by women crew. And one of the important special mentions was for NS Rajanappa, a 69-year-old man paralyzed below his knees towards cleaning up of Vembanad Lake. He uses, though he is physically handicapped, he uses a small boat, goes around the lake and the ravines attached to the lake and collects plastic bottles and makes his living by selling that plastic bottle. So coming to the next article, medical board on abortion unfeasible. So if you have been listening to the past classes, in the last 4th or 5th class, if I remember correctly, that we have been talking about the MTP bill, the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020. So if you have seen the class, if you know that the MTP, Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020, introduced a concept for termination of pregnancies beyond 24 weeks in case of fetal abnormalities. In order to get the permission to get that abortion or to abort after 24 weeks, you need to get permission from a medical board containing specialists. So the study shows, a study was conducted all over India by and the study showed that 82% of the hospitals are not staffed enough to constitute a board in itself. So whatever the bill talks about, that you need to get a clearance from a medical board, there are no staff to constitute a medical board, then how are you going to get the clearance from the medical board? So the specific section in this, or the criteria in this medical bill, is unfeasible as it cannot be implemented because of lack of staffing. That is the important concept here, that though the idea seems to that there can be a medical board, but we cannot staff or we cannot constitute a medical board because we lack staffing. So the data is based on the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare's Rural Health Survey. It is from the government data itself. It's not a third party survey or a third party company conducting the survey and coming out with the results. Whatever the study was done was based on the data provided by the government itself, specifically Ministry of Health and Family Welfare's Rural Health Survey, which provides details for vacancies filled at secondary healthcare center. This report talks about the vacancies that exist in healthcare centers around India, and from that data, 82% of obstetrics and gynecology and pediatric positions are vacant in our country. Coming to the next article, India delivers 2 cranes for Chabahar port. So there has been a lot of going back, front and back between India and Iran, in particular to Chabahar port. So there has been a little bit of stalemate where Iranian authorities did not invite Indian side for the opening of a railway line or a railway link between Chabahar port and other areas. So since then, that incident, there has been negotiations going on between our side and their side, and in order to show our willingness to complete, or in order to show that we are still in the game and we are still going to support the Chabahar port and the country of Iran, we delivered 2 cranes for Chabahar port. So these are 140-ton cranes which are helpful in loading and unloading containers from ships. So this is a good step towards rebuilding what was lost over the coronavirus pandemic and the Iranian sanctions imposed by the US government. Since, if you are aware, there is a lot of tension between the US and the Iran regarding the nuclear deal that they have. Since US has imposed sanctions, India could not trade or India could not support Iran as it should have been or it was promised as. So they were very vexed with us, or very, let us say, angry with us in how India was dealing or balancing our relationship with Iran, US in the middle with the sanctions hanging over our head. Since that the negotiations and the relationship seems to have been warmed a little bit, since we are in the phase of completely operationalizing the Chabahar port for trade. Finally, WHO team visits Wuhan market to find virus clues. So if you have been following the story, first the Chinese government said that we are not going to allow anybody, only the Chinese scientists are going to do the research on the origins of coronavirus. Then we are going to share the data with the world. After facing much of backlash from most of the countries, almost all the countries in the world, they said that we'll allow a World Health Organization investigation team into Wuhan. So before the team landed in Wuhan, the Chinese government changed its stance and said that no, we are not going to allow any international or third party scientists or teams to conduct investigations in the origins of Wuhan or coronavirus, and they turned them back. To which the World Health Organization expressed its displeasure over the Chinese authorities' way of handling the investigation team or investigation as a whole. And again, after facing backlash from most of the countries in the world, the Chinese government again said that no, we'll allow them, please send them back in. It seems to that finally the team has visited the wet market in Wuhan, where most of the theories suggest that most of the propaganda from the Chinese side seems to suggest that the virus first transmitted from animals to humans in that wet market in Wuhan. So this was a single visit. This was only one visit, but if you know any investigation into origins of virus, a single visit cannot determine the origins of virus. And there is also a large scale condemnation that by this time, see, the first case of coronavirus pandemic was reported in December of 2019. This is February of 2021. There is little chance that evidence exists there for the WHO team to investigate after all. Thank you very much. Have a good day.